It's no secret that the Barbie movie was a massive success this year. Not only is it the top performing film of the year, partially due to the Barbenheimer memes, but it's become a topic of heated debate in online discourse. Depending on who you ask, the film is either a brilliant social commentary or pushing a ham-fisted message on an exaggerated perspective on the film. There's really no in between, but despite everything, there actually is one thing people do seem to agree upon. Not the main character, but rather the representation of Barbie's biggest accessory, an integral part of the brand, yet only as a complement to the name on the packaging. Someone who has been overlooked in the decades of branding, and even isn't really considered a factor by the company who owns him. But this man is not to be held down by his assigned role in life. In fact, his aspirations are far higher. Can you guess who I'm talking about?
Barbie's worked hard and they dreamed hard to make it everything that it is. You can't just do it in a day.
Literally and figuratively watch me. Every night is a boys' night. This is my Mojo Dojo Casa House. It's not Barbie's Mojo Dojo Casa House.
Alright, I should probably put a hard cut to the Ken puns before I start to bleed subscribers. Hello, Doomers and Doomettes, I'm your host Dee, and that's right, this time we're taking a look at the so-called glorified Barbie accessory, Ken, specifically his portrayal in the Barbie film by Ryan Gosling. And to be honest, there really has been a lot of heated debate over the Barbie movie this summer.
This movie is not just a piece of shit. This movie is a flaming piece of dog shit piled atop an entire dumpster on fire, piled atop a landfill filled with dog shit.
But despite all the online discourse for and against the Barbie film, people seem to unanimously love Ken's character. Ken can be argued to be the antagonist of the film, but yet people seem to strongly sympathize with him. So what's the reason for it? Is it his dashing good looks, or is he literally me? What's his point in the film, and was it intentional on the part of the filmmakers? And is Ryan Gosling truly our guy? So just before we begin, I'd just like to ask that if you're new to the channel, please consider liking the video or even subscribing if you want to see more. And don't forget, we're partnered with the online toy shop Transwarp Toys, here to fulfill your action figure and collecting needs. With a range of products from Hasbro to Mattel, be sure to check it out and use the promo code DoomerDen for 5% off your first order. I tried to convince the owner to set up a Just Ken section, but he isn't too keen on that idea. Yet. And to returning subscribers out there, thanks for coming back. So with that said, lend me your Kenergy and let's dive on in.
I'm a guy's toy, okay? I'm kind of a role model. A manly role model.
So it doesn't bother you that on your own box, your name is 8 times smaller than Barbie's?
Next question.
How do you respond to people who say you're really nothing more than a glorified Barbie accessory?
Okay, that's it. All right, this interview's over.
Now, before we can get into a breakdown of the character in the film, to understand Ken, one must first understand his role in the Barbie brand as a whole. Barbie, of course, debuted as a doll in 1959 from toy company Mattel, revolutionizing the doll industry in American markets by creating an adult fashion toy for girls, whereas most dolls currently available were representations of infants. It, of course, was a massive success, and in 1961, Mattel introduced Ken, a male doll, into the line, and he was billed as Barbie's boyfriend. The thing is, this wasn't exactly an attempt to market the same play pattern to boys. That wouldn't come until Hasbro's release of G.I. Joe in 1964, which directly lifted the Barbie strategy, but instead shifted it from a fashion line to a military line. No, instead, Ken was sold with outfits that were designed to complement what Barbie had. From Malibu beach attire, to safari gear, to rock star, and everything in between. If Barbie was getting it, Ken was going to get some form of matching doll. Except for the puberty one. Probably should talk about that one. But the point being, it was Barbie who always led the line. And of course that would be the case. It's a girl's doll line, and it's meant to promote a play pattern of girlfriend-boyfriend relations for children. Except for, Sugar Daddy Ken. That was a weird choice. Really, look it up. But this is where you start to hear the idea that Ken is Barbie's accessory. People will buy a Ken for Barbie, but no one is buying just Ken. So with that brief backstory in mind, let's talk about the film itself. The Barbie movie was in development for quite some time, dating as far back to 2009, but we're not going to talk quite as much about the film's production as we are about Ryan Gosling, who I'm convinced may have gone completely insane for the role.
Ken in a box. This is to remind you of the box that you came in, and the box that the world will happily put you back in if you don't Ken as hard as you can every day. Great outfit, and just a reminder of what you do if you forget, he does beach.
In 2021, Gosling signed up to play the role and cited a very interesting reason for his motivation to play Ken.
I walk out in the backyard, and do you know where I found Ken, Jimmy? Face down in the mud next to a squish lemon.
And this is the photo. You took a photo of it. And this is a sign. This is a sign that you gotta do this movie. The utter disrespect.
I texted it to Greta and I said, I shall be your Ken. For his story must be told.
From here, Ryan Gosling would go on to describe Ken as someone who has no money, no job, no house, and is just all around someone who's not exactly having a good life. And that's before even describing any elements of the film itself. So what exactly happened to Ken in the film? Well, Barbie of course opens up with its depiction of a sort of utopia for the Barbies. In Barbie Land, it's said that the Barbies have a great day every day, but Ken only has a great day if Barbie looks at him. While our standard Barbie is out having her day, Ken stands at the beach, anxiously waiting for her to arrive so he can be blessed by her attention. When Barbie finally arrives, he's excited but then quickly grows jealous when the other Kens greet Barbie as well, and he desperately tries to compete for the attention and prove himself. This continues on as the Barbies host a dance party, and Ken looks on as he fears that the other Kens have the potential of retaining her attention more than he can. When the party ends, Ken asks if he could stay over, but is kicked out by Barbie, proclaiming it to be girls' night, although every night is girls' night. So at the end of the first day, we can gather a couple things about the Kens in the world and our main Ken. Some people have compared the Kens to second-class citizens, but perhaps that may be just slightly melodramatic. They're not subservient to the Barbies, but they're just sort of there. After the big group events, they're just sort of out of mind, and who knows where they are or where they stay. Our main Ken in particular is Barbie's boyfriend, but that term means far more to him than it does to her. To Barbie, Ken's presence in her day is inconsequential. She enjoys him enough, but doesn't feel a need for him. Ken, on the other hand, feels as though he must spend his whole day impressing her, even growing jealous of others while seemingly avoiding other Kens who want to hang out with him for who he is. Put a pin in that for now, because we're gonna circle back to that. When Barbie has an existential crisis and decides to leave Barbie Land, Ken is taunted by his rival into going, and with reluctance from Barbie, Ken tags along to join her into the real world. And when Barbie needs time alone to process things, Ken goes off on his own and, well, basically watches a little Dark Age montage of why men rule the world, and so Ken discovers the patriarchy. For once, Ken feels like he has a purpose, even letting it go to his head when someone asks him for the time, feeling like there's someone who respects what he has to say. So with the belief that the patriarchy is when people respect him and also has something to do with horses, Ken gathers all the literature he can and attempts to take advantage of his position of power. The only thing in his way? Proper qualifications and training, and if it wasn't for that, he surely could rule the world. So rather than staying in a world where he feels respect and adoration, Ken returns to Barbie Land to spread his newfound ideology, and in record short time, Barbie Land is rechristened into the Kendom, telling his fellow Kens about the importance of themselves, taking over all the Barbie dream houses and renaming them into the Mojo Dojo Casa houses. Honestly, that's an upgrade, if you ask me. And it's revealed that the Kens intend to launch a vote in 48 hours to change the Barbie Land constitution to officially make it the Kendom. Our main Barbie protests, but Ken coldly tells her that this night is for the boys, and he has her leave, a reversal from the situation earlier.
How's that feel? It is not fun, is it?
So in light of this, the Barbies realize that the Ken's patriarchy is somehow poisoning the minds of the other Barbies like an illness, and they give a speech which somehow snaps them out of it. And so, in order to stop the vote from happening, the Barbies conspire to trick all the Kens into fighting each other by gaslighting them into thinking they're all cheating on them. Wait, I'm sorry, that can't be right. I apologize. I think I wrote it wrong. Let me just confirm what happened in the film again. No, I had it right. So, in order to stop a democratic process of voting, the Barbies tricked the Kens into fighting each other based on making the Kens believe that the Barbies are cheating on them. Huh. Well, from there, the Kens go into an all-out civil war, until they inevitably realize that they shouldn't be fighting each other, but rather join hands and stand together. But by then, it's too late. The Kens have been tricked out of the vote, and the status quo is restored to Barbie Land. So based on that, what exactly can we say about Ken? Well, as I mentioned, I don't necessarily think the Kens were second-class citizens, but they certainly weren't appreciated in the society prior, and I think that led to the main issues that motivated the stereotype Ken of the film. And when you think about it, it actually parallels a lot of psychological issues that many people are facing today. In the Barbie Land, Kens were designed to be accessories to the Barbies just by the nature of Mattel. It's Barbie and Ken, there's no such thing as just Ken. As a result, it really bred an environment where the Kens just craved Barbie's attention. In today's modern lingo, I suppose the term most commonly used would be simp. Yes, I'm sure we're all very familiar with the term, but in the rare case that you aren't, a simp is generally classified as a man who is desperately craving the attention of a woman at any or all costs. If you really need an example, check out Mordecai from Regular Show.
Don't do anything you're gonna regret. Don't do it!
Now buckle up, because here's where we get a little bit deeper into psychology as opposed to some of my standard videos. I would honestly argue that simps are not born, they are created by an environment where the most emphasis is placed on the importance of receiving attention, and as a result, this severely cripples self-esteem. If you desperately spend your time reaching out for the approval of others, then you're never going to reach your own level of fulfillment, because rather than coming to terms with what you need for yourself, you instead seek out to get your needs from others, relying on that. Hence, Barbie is able to enjoy her day, while Ken waits at the beach for her to arrive. And honestly, that's just the environment they live in. Kens don't strive for anything, but rather must consistently perform stunts for the attention of others. And despite the fact that another Ken tries to spend time with the primary Ken, this doesn't even register with our main one, as his environment forces him to believe he's nothing without Barbie. But when Ken reaches the real world, he starts to realize that he can get that fulfillment without the Barbies. It's why he becomes so infatuated when someone asks him for the time. It's human nature as a whole to want to feel useful, and that's something that's an incredibly common observation. However, I think where things start to get odd is when Ken discovers the real world and we have the use of the term patriarchy. Now, I'm not going to get into any sociology discussions, even though I'm sure the comment section of this video will turn into a minefield, but I'm strictly talking within the confines of the film. A patriarchy is of course a male-oriented and dominated society, so it's meant to contrast with the Barbie's matriarchal society. However, even though Ken discovers this concept, it becomes clear rather quickly that this isn't how the fictional world operates. Ken can't just get a job in business, medicine, or even as a lifeguard without proper training and education, despite his initial belief that being a man is enough.
Well, I won't let you do just one appendectomy,
But I'm a man.
but not a doctor.
Please,
No,
can I talk to a doctor?
you are talking to a doctor.
Can you get me a coffee?
No,
And I need a clicky pen
No.
and a white coat
No.
and a sharp thing.
no.
There he is. Doctor!
Somebody get security.
So, he may bring his warped sense of reality to Barbie Land, but even in this cartoonish depiction of patriarchy, it's not even a concept that Ken is fully committed to.
To be honest, when I found out the patriarchy wasn't about horses, I lost interest anyway.
So if instituting a patriarchy wasn't really his plan, nor did he even like the concept, what was the objective here? What was he trying to do? It's simple. Ken wanted to feel the basic human need of wanting to feel valued. And honestly, I think the position of the Kens in Barbie Land represent how many people, both men and women, feel in the real world. Uncertainty about their identity and going through great and absurd lengths just to feel recognized and needed. It's not an issue that just goes between men and women, it's something that honestly affects everyone. Society around him wasn't giving him the tools he needed to come to terms with this issue. And then, rather than addressing the problem of the radicalization as a result of the society, they're all just tricked and they don't receive a resolution for themselves.
Please may the Kens have one Supreme Court justice.
Oh, I can't do that.
But it's interesting, because if you ever listen to the lyrics of the I'm Just Ken song, you could see the realization that they don't need the validation of others to protect their ego, but instead they accept what they're good at and join hands with each other to stop the absurdist fighting to protect fragile egos. In an incredibly odd way, the Barbie movie, obviously intended to be a feminist film, actually has a really strong message for common issues that men face, and I'm not entirely sure if that was intentional or not, or how it even got in the film in the first place. In fact, if you contrast the protagonist Barbie of the film to Ken, I'd argue it's Ken who goes through not only a more significant character arc, but a more interesting one that is sensible to the characters themselves. Ken's arc sees a struggle to forge an identity, going from, quite frankly, a simp to someone capable of accepting who they are without the validation of others. Barbie, on the other hand, I'd argue has the more unclear arc, going from a need to restore the status quo to a sudden desire to be a real person in a moment that I don't think was properly built up nor had a real clear transition point. So with that in mind, our usual question must be raised. Did Ken do anything wrong? Well, honestly, I think the Kendom did seem like a pretty rad place to hang out, so I'm gonna put him as another member of the Doomer Den certified Did Nothing Wrong squad, because it really comes across to me more that he's a victim of the environment around him rather than someone actually attempting to do something malicious for personal gain. Ken, by design, is often ignored and overlooked by the Barbies, and even his own makers don't care for him.
Ken isn't something we're worried about. Ever.
Is it any surprise he organizes a cry for attention just to feel appreciated? And truthfully, I think this line of logic for the character is open to interpretation, as it's not even a gender-specific issue. It's something that can apply to anyone. I think because of this, and the fact that Ken's arc seems more defined, I'd say it's why he's such a breakout character of the film, and even people who didn't like the movie really like him. The message changes from being just a Ken to all you need to be is just Ken, and that you are enough of a person as you are. And I think that's a really good message at the end of the day, and I find it odd that it feels like he's presented as an antagonist in parts of the film. The Barbie movie is a film I would describe to others as conflicted. I feel it has some overall contradicting messaging, and if I were to do a full review, I'd cite that Barbie's own arc seems to clash with some of the ideology in the film. The presentation of the quote-unquote real world shifts from cartoonishly misogynistic to something more realistic, and then it uses typical Hollywood buzzwords like accusing Barbie of fascism, something that even Barbie herself is confused with.
She thinks I'm a fascist. I don't control the railways or the flow of commerce.
If there's anything genuine to take out of the film, it's definitely just Ken. While there's certainly debate on whether or not the character was intended to just be a joke or not, Ryan Gosling's performance is highly entertaining, and I think with a certain analytical lens, a rather interesting message can be interpreted. You are Kenough. You don't need to prove anything to anyone else. You're enough, and you're great at doing stuff. And the reason I thought this was an interesting video to make was because of all the discourse over the film. I think some people are missing out on this line of thinking. If you haven't seen it, at the end of the day, I'd always encourage giving something a chance to put together your own perspective rather than following the will of others. Though, my own personal take is that it's a mixed bag of a movie with one very good character in it. But if you only want just Ken, I'm pretty sure I saw on 4chan's TV board that someone already put together a Barbie movie, the Just Ken cut. Besides, I don't think Ken should end up with Barbie anyway, not after the events of the film. He'd be better off with Raquel from the Life in the Dreamhouse series.
Let's see. She won the sandcastle building contest. We tied at surfing. I got a bonus point for the wacky hair. And I won the picnic. I win!
Well, this one was certainly a little bit out of my usual wheelhouse, but it's my YouTube channel, so I get to talk about what I want. Did you see the Barbie movie? What were your thoughts on it? Did you ever meet Ryan Gosling in the grocery store? Let me know in the comments below. Next video will absolutely be the promised Johan Did Nothing Wrong, and that one is definitely an intensive project for me, so buckle up. Afterwards, I intend to get another Transformers video up, and I've had some requests to touch base with regards to the current ongoing arc of Land of the Lustrous. If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like or a comment, or subscribe if you want to see more. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, feel free to join our Discord, linked in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I can see you next time.